It's major. I mean, people like to think that it'll never happen to them. And I hope it never happens to them. I really do, because losing that kind of money at any point in your life is devastating.
Welcome back to another episode of A Closer Look Across the Village Media Network with Michael Friscoletti, our editor-in-chief here at Village. I'm Scott Sexsmith. You know, I almost get upset every time we do an episode like we're going to do it this evening, because it seems like too often we're talking about scams, online scams, phone scams, texting scams, but here we are.
We live in a fraud world.
We really do.
And
you know what? I'm getting pissed off by it. I really am.
It's constant. My phone dinging, my email beeping, and it's always. But they're getting better. Like these scammers,
they're smart.
They're smart, and they look more and more real. We're having regular conversations. I feel like once a week with somebody, a relative or a friend, asking me, "Does this look legit to you?"
Yeah,
and it's not. And the reason we're talking about it again today is the federal government announced this week that they're going to launch a national anti-fraud strategy and a new agency to fight financial crime. The Carney government says it's going to be part of the federal budget coming on November 4th. Yeah. Lots of opinions on how well this would work. And to be honest, I'm not an expert, but when you see the numbers that are out there in the $600-700 million range a year of what we know of scams reported.
That's just reported, yeah.
I don't know if the government agency is going to make a dent in that, and all of a sudden we're going to see that number plummet. Because as we're going to hear from Vanessa Yafala, who's a anti-fraud expert, she's going to chat with us today. The fraudsters are getting better and better, and they're equipped with AI technology just like everybody else, and they're using it to their advantage. And my pessimistic view is it's going to get a whole lot worse before it might get better. But we'll definitely hear what she has to say about it.
Fraud isn't just about losing money. It's about losing trust, confidence, and sometimes even your sense of self. From crypto scams to online romances gone wrong, thousands of Canadians fall victim every year, and the emotional fallout can be as devastating as the financial losses. We're going to talk more about that tonight with Vanessa Iafala, who operates Anti-Fraud Intelligence Consulting. Vanessa, welcome to Closer Look. We appreciate your time tonight.
Oh, I'm so glad to be on with you today.
All right, let's get to the big news of the week, Vanessa. The federal government is promising to create Canada's first ever national anti-fraud strategy as part of its upcoming budget. It's going to include a requirement that banks have specific policies in place to prevent and address fraud. What's your reaction? I feel like we've heard this promise a time or two before.
Well, yeah, this is something we've been hearing for quite some time. And I mean, I think there's some reason for cautious optimism, but there are enough questions with what's been shared with us so far that I'm left wondering what the real efficacy of this new strategy is going to be and how it's actually going to have payoffs for Canadians. Like, what's the real upshot going to be for the Canadian taxpayer?
It makes me wonder, like, if you're actually if you fall victim to fraud, how's this going to change your life?
Well, isn't that the question? I mean, I don't know how much information you've been able to kind of glean about this, but for example, one of the things that I learned is they are hiring specifically 150 new RCMP officers to tackle financial crime, which, great. I am never going to say no to money for enforcement. I think that the more people we have doing detection, investigation, maybe even for the lucky few, some asset recovery, phenomenal. But when you think about the fact that there's been like a 300% increase in losses over the last year for fraud, and this was something I read in one of the government's own releases, and that this is the single most prevalent kind of victimization that we experience in Canada. Suddenly 150 RCMP officers doesn't seem like that much of a jump in terms of enforcement and detection. It's just not enough. I mean, I talk to people who say things to me like, I've been waiting a year and a half for the police to get back to me. Or, I've called the cops and they've told me that there's not a lot of movement on my file and that I should just try to do this myself somehow. Does the average person know how to do it themselves? No. And so 150 more people is really not going to make, I think, that much of a dent in what is a very fast growing and profitable kind of exploitation of Canadians.
I think that's probably the reason a lot of people don't even report fraud, right? Because they don't even believe anything will come of it.
Well, they're not wrong. Like, people don't get their money back. There are very few arrests. There are even fewer convictions. And there's not a lot of information sharing either that's going to facilitate that. So, for example, I worked a case recently where the victim gave express consent to the bank to share their information with the cops. Okay. Like, you can't say fairer than that. And the bank dragged and dragged and dragged on sharing that information. Well, time is of the essence here. So, I mean, it's wonderful that you've hired extra people to do this work, but without infrastructure in place that addresses how detection happens, like how investigations are undertaken, where are we going?
Vanessa, the new plan would require banks to have anti-fraud policies. From your experience consulting on these cases, are financial institutions doing enough right now to protect their customers, and should they bear any of the responsibility?
So the way that it works right now in practice, at least in the cases that I see, is this. The bank doesn't distinguish between the consumer as a fraud victim and the consumer as a fraudster. Mm-hmm. So essentially, you are a risk to them just as much as the person who is victimizing you is. And so what they're concerned with in their fraud policies, by and large, in the cases that I see, are making sure that their own interests are protected. So it doesn't matter to them if you want to wire $9,990 to buy a house with no proof whatsoever to someone who's not a real estate agent. That's fine. It doesn't matter. Those aren't red flags at all. Nothing to see here. Move along. So to the extent that we're going to have policies, hopefully, that will require banks to be more consumer-centered in terms of their approach to fraud detection, fantastic. But again, like when we enacted anti-money laundering legislation in Canada, we didn't enact that system so that the banks could use it to protect themselves. We enacted like that. We created that system and implemented it so that we could protect Canadians from money laundering and terrorist financing. Mm-hmm. And I don't really see that as having been a great win in terms of how big that apparatus is and how much money people are losing.
Mm-hmm. Can we talk about scams? Because we hear about them every day in the news, right? We hear about the grandparent scam or the romance scam.
Yeah.
You're somebody who deals with victims of this kind of fraud all the time. Just how big of a problem is it, Vanessa?
It's major. I mean, people like to think that it'll never happen to them. And I hope it never happens to them. I really do, because losing that kind of money at any point in your life is devastating. Like, you know, I've spoken to young people who've lost all of their tuition money essentially, or, you know, maybe $10,000, $15,000, which, you know, when you've only been working for a few years is a huge amount of money to lose, and it sets you back, just as it really sets people back before retirement, right? If you lose a bunch of money, like maybe more than tens of thousands. I've spoken to people who've lost hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's a huge, huge deal. And yet it's a huge deal that people think is never going to happen to them. But like, the numbers are there. Mm-hmm. It's coming for all of us. They don't care who you are. They just care that they hook you at the right moment.
It's true. And I just feel like we live in a constant, we've talked about this before on the show.
Yeah.
It's a constant. My phone is dinging. It's a text message or it's an email I get from somebody, or my wife is asking me, look at this email. Is this
legit?
And I feel like I'm a somewhat savvy person, and I can understand, like, you know, when there's a spelling mistake in the, you know, the 407 guy trying to make me pay him, it's not the Highway 407. I've been on Highway 407 in 4 years, so it's not what it is. But they're getting harder and harder to distinguish, right, Vanessa? I mean, they're getting better at what they do.
They are. I mean, think about it. This is their full-time job. Like, there are literally entire industrial office complexes overseas that are dedicated to this kind of enterprise. Like, I mean, like, you put that much effort into R&D in anything, and you're going to be surging ahead by leaps and bounds. So yeah, it is a lot harder. I mean, in the last week, people who know me have sent me scams ranging from, hey, did you see this? Instead of Microsoft, it's RN Microsoft in the email, so it looks like the letter M, but the way that it's swished together in the email address, like it's faking you out. Yeah, right? Like, you don't think to see that or to look for that. I even got like a solicitation in my like professional anti-fraud intelligence email saying like, hey, I mean, to me, it read as, hey, I'm a scammer. Please give me your information. We're going to make your business super profitable. And I was like, I think you're barking up the wrong tree. I'm just going to delete.
Do you see what business you're in? I feel like someone in one of those complexes, like, I'm going to try this one because I'm going to try to scam the person who's the expert.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, well, thanks for giving me more data points. I don't know what to tell you. Like, and I mean, it's true. It's something that's so common and so prevalent. And when I talk to people, I really can't help but feel for them, because what the scammers are doing is preying on all these normal things that make us really human, right? Like romance scams. Like, everyone wants companionship or, love or relationship. And it doesn't even have to be like romantic. People just want to feel connected to other people. And they're preying on that. Or, we live in a society where we're all meant to save for our future, right? Like, I have been told since I was like a child that, make sure you save up and you buy a house, make sure you save up and you put money into your RSP, put money into your TFSA, and, make sure that you're financially savvy. And so all of these things are things that we're meant to be doing. But then when somebody exploits that and scams you, suddenly, you're treated like you're unintelligent or foolish or, unsavvy in some way. And that's just not the truth.
All right, let's talk a little bit more about that, Vanessa. You've obviously seen and heard some incredible horror stories. What are some of the worst scam stories that you've heard?
Oh,
you hit a nerve.
Yeah, no, like and I can sorry to be spluttering, but my head right now, I can see all these different faces of people that I've spoken with, and I can hear the tales coming back. Do I talk about the university professor who was defrauded by somebody who pretended to be someone he knew very closely, like faked an email address and like took him for a bunch of money? Do I talk about the doctor who was widowed and went on Tinder for the first time in his entire life and started dating for the first time in like 20 years and then met the wrong person and was exploited? Like, do I talk about the little old ladies who've lost their entire life savings because the bank didn't realize that maybe we don't just send $9,900 on a whim to, nameless people for cash? Like, where do I go? There are so many of these cases. And one of the things that comes through all of them is the emotional and relational fallout that people experience. Because, I mean, look, it's totally normal to have an emotional reaction when you hear that your loved one's been scammed, right? To say, oh my gosh, how did this happen? Or why didn't you tell me? We're all human, but people don't trust themselves. People don't trust their ability to know that the person that they're dealing with is real and genuine, that person actually has good intentions. People don't know how to talk to their families. There's a lot of shame. There's a lot of expectation as well. So, if you had been telling your loved ones that you're going to leave them money when you die, and then suddenly you're basically forced to live on their couch, that's a really rough thing to happen in a family. And I've talked to people who've gotten divorced over it. So there are like real devastating, not just financial, but every aspect of your life. Once you're victimized, like every aspect of your life is touched.
I'm speechless hearing some of those. We heard I read that story out of Barrie today a few months ago, and you might have seen this too, Vanessa.
Oh, the romance.
There was an older gentleman who, I think the scam began with someone with an alert on his computer saying, hey, you have a problem you have some virus, give me a call. And by the end of it, he was giving a guy at his door like $75,000 worth of gold,
right.
with a gold bar.
Yes. Yeah.
The scam had gone on so deep. It's the obvious question, and I know you can help explain this. People think, how would anyone fall for that? That's ridiculous. But how they do, it's easy to fall for that, right, Vanessa?
Well, you'll fall for it. And if I tell you, like in 3 easy steps, this is how you can get anyone to fall for a scam. Like, I'm not making a pitch, and I hope nobody uses this for evil, right? But basically what people do is they pressure you. They create a situation that is designed to hijack your brain. So, as humans, we developed the portion of our brain that is emotional and reactive. That fight or flight center is the first thing that comes online, right? And your higher order rational thinking capabilities, those come online later. For some of us, maybe they come online much, much later, right? As you mature as a person. But because that's something that is so ingrained in us, it's really easy for that system to get hijacked, right? If you create a situation where someone is under real intense pressure, and especially if they are isolated and they don't have, an external brain and another person essentially to say, hey, what's going on here? Can we talk about this? You can quite easily get someone's fear response to override any kind of rational reaction that they have, because you're making them enter into a space where it's really hard cognitively to evaluate, to think critically. So essentially what you're doing is you're getting them into a fight or flight mode in a modern system where you can have access to all kinds of life devastating information for those people. And then, the longer it goes on, the more people wind up being sort of immersed in that world, right? Immersed in the scammers world, where that becomes what they think is really reality.
Mm-hmm. And the reality too is that the scammer doesn't have to get 100 people. They just have to find that one person, maybe one person a week that they can reel in. And all of a sudden, you're getting $75,000 in gold bars out in their driveway. But that's the reality, right? They'll swing and miss most of the time, but you just got to catch that one, right? Yeah.
It's a numbers game. This is why it's called mass marketing fraud, right? That you send out all of this information. It's a mass marketing campaign for fraud. And so the more hooks you have out there, the more likely you are to catch a fish. And especially where things change so quickly and the technology is something it's hard to keep up with. The average consumer on their own doesn't stand a chance.
Vanessa, we often talk about the financial side of scams, but you said the emotional toll is the forgotten impact. What did you mean by that?
Well, when you see reports, right, people talk about the amount of money that's lost. So we'll quantify that, right? Because you can look at that money and you can say, well, it was $10,000 or it was, $250,000 or whatever it is. And we can even talk about the additional financial costs that maybe you have to bear by hiring legal counsel or whatever it is. But all of the extra stuff that happens to you as a victim that we know happens to victims of crime in general, like if your house is burgled, people will never take for granted that you might feel unsafe, right? That you might suffer from insomnia. You might jump at every noise in the house. We understand that. But because it's a scam and people tend to be judgmental about what they think they would have done, right? How they would have been smarter or they would have been more knowledgeable or whatever way that they would be superior and wouldn't be caught out in this way. We kind of overlook what else is happening, right? We tend to ignore all of the additional kinds of reactions that every victim of crime experiences in this context. This is the one place where I see victim blaming the most vicious, I would say, that I've ever noticed.
Vanessa, let's talk about AI for a sec, if we can. How has AI helped fraudsters ramp up their game?
How long do you have?
Not much longer. We're all doomed.
You've talked about it at the top, right? You mentioned the grandparent scam. Being able to impersonate somebody, being able to represent yourself as that person, especially if it's someone you either have a close emotional tie to or someone who you respect. So there've been recently, there was an investment scam where a famous person had their likeness taken. I'm going to just leave the names out of it for a moment. And that person's likeness was taken and it was used by AI to further the scam. The news reported it. There was an image of this person, a new image of this person that was used. And because that new image came onto the internet, there was new data that was created for AI. And then as a consequence, that AI scam ramped up even more. Like I said, it's their business. And fraudsters are going to use whatever tools they can to maximize their profits. So it's rough out there. It's really rough out there, I think, especially as these things get better and better. we're going to see more and more victimization. I mean, right now, for example, both of you, there's enough data out there. You need very, very little vocal and very little video or still to make AI likenesses of you. All three of us, we could totally be manipulated into like having a pro scamming conversation right now, and no one would be the wiser.
Yes.
Which, please don't do that, anyone who's out there.
Yeah. And who even knows if this conversation we're having right now is real?
It's not real.
We just don't know. It's impossible to tell.
I'm not here.
Oh, trust me. I talk about it every day. Vanessa, I talk about it every day. It scares the hell out of me. I'm not going to lie. It boggles my mind, the stuff that people can do, and how realistic it looks. And
it's crazy.
Like you said, you're faking someone's voice. I know my grandmothers, God bless them, they're gone now. If someone had my voice on AI and they phoned them, they would have sold their house in 5 seconds to help me out. Not my other siblings. They just
just you.
Just me, yeah.
They didn't like that.
No, but it's true. I mean, that's and which speaks to what we talked about. Obviously, seniors are a great target because of that. I mean, they're going to. I know people, seniors who've been scammed by this, and you can't blame them. They're just trying to help. I guess what I wanted to ask you, Vanessa, is, do you feel like we hear the number all the time, $643 million, I think, last year in frauds, what we know of that was reported, the money lost. Do you think what the government's doing now is actually going to help us see those numbers decrease?
Well, I mean, I'm hopeful that there will be some positive changes. I'm cautious about some of the things that are tabled. For example, we've got the Financial Consumer Agency of Canada. We've got the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre. We've got FinTrack. Now they want to have the Financial Crimes Agency. There's also something out there called FC3, which is the Financial Crimes Coordination Center. And so if we're going to be creating another policy-heavy, non-enforcing, bureaucratic layer, I'm not certain how much that's really going to do for Canadians in a meaningful, on the ground, everyday kind of way. And also, I mean, one of the things that I think people don't really acknowledge is the fact that this needs a whole of society approach. Like, you need to have not just the cops and not just the banks, but we need to talk about how and why mass marketing through our internet and phone lines is even possible in the first place. Like, why is it that my iPhone doesn't mark a scam caller, but my mom's Android does? Like, why is that not something that we're looking at harmonizing for Canadians?
That's a great point.
Why are we not turning off the communication pathways for scammers who we can discern through the ways that it's working, right? Are targeting us. Like, that's also something that we need to talk about. So I'd like to believe that there's a place for this to go. I'm just concerned, given the kinds of agencies that we've seen pop up in the past, that it's just going to be more middle managing fewer people to do that work.
Most probably, I think people should just listen to this podcast conversation. They would learn way more than they need to know about how to protect themselves, and we'll all be fine.
But if you want to protect your loved ones and you're listening, one, if you're worried about an older adult and you're worried about them being scammed, make sure that you really lock down their social media. That's one of the places where I've seen things go really wrong for seniors. So making sure that you know how they can be contacted and by whom, that you don't leave things publicly available to be scraped from the internet for them to be scammed. And I think most importantly, really and truly, that you have good relationships with the people in your lives, no matter what they are, like whether they're your parents or your child or, you know, your grandparent, because it's in these connections that the conversations can happen, where someone can say, hey, does this look like a real thing? Or I got this email, or did you send me this photo today? Because if you're not able to have good conversations with people and ask questions without worrying about being judged, you're not going to bring the sunshine or the sunlight into the scam room in the first place, right? Like, sunlight is the disinfectant that we all need all the time. That's really where it starts.
All All right, our thanks to Vanessa Iafalo for a great conversation. We always have good conversations about these scams.
Yes.
And it's too bad that we have to continually have them, but they're not going anywhere anytime soon.
No, and you think of like Vanessa, she's a very intelligent person, and she spends her days working with victims, right?
Yeah.
She not only is an expert at how these scams take place and what we can do to help prevent them, but she also deals with the emotional toll, like you touched on, right? She helps people deal with the guilt and the shame and the stigma that's associated with that, because you would just be devastated, right? Oh. And again, I know people who've been scammed, and they're intelligent people. It's not that they were, they fell off the pumpkin truck or whatever the term is. They
turn up truck.
They knew what they were. They're very smart people, and what she said is right. They feel like they've hijacked you, and you feel like you need to act now to get this figured out, right?
Yeah.
And if you are, in your 80s, and
let's hope we get there.
Yeah, and AI technology is so foreign to you, and your phone rings and it sounds like your 18-year-old granddaughter.
Absolutely.
You are going to do whatever that they ask you to do. There's no way. There's just no way you're not going to.
No,
so you can see, and it is sad that there are, literal office buildings full of these people who do this for, I don't know how you sleep at night.
I don't know, man. Get a real job.
Yeah, like get a job, get a life.
Piece of know what.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
All right. Let's get out of here.
That's why I don't answer your emails, by the way. I just think they're all frauds.
You never think it's really me.
No, I never do.
I'm here to tell you it is really me reaching out.
All right. Tonight
I've always said if I ever make it to Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, you would never be my phone a friend. Because you just would never answer. I'd be stuck there. $1 million on the line. And you're like, Scott, forget it. Closer look at villagemedia.ca. Any questions, comments about the program, as always, would love to hear from you, and sign up and subscribe to the show 6 days a week. We'll send you fresh episodes at closerlookpodcast.ca. He's had his work cut out for him this evening. Derek Turner, producer of this evening's show. He'll be back tomorrow, as will we. For Michael Friscolanti, editor-in-chief here at Village Media, I'm Scott Sexsmith. Thanks for watching. Have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow night at 7 right here on Closer Look.
Frisco and Scott's Wardrobe provided in part by Moores, Sault Ste. Marie.